She thought making herself ugly would save her. Until the CEO outside said, "Cancel the others. I want her." Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. The purple neon lights of the Manhattan rooftop bar reflected off the rearview mirror as Elena leaned forward in the back seat of the rideshare car, smudging the eyeliner beneath her eyes until it looked like she'd pulled an all-nighter she never recovered from. She dabbed dark concealer in uneven patches, dragged mascara across her lashes until they clumped like wet threads, and fluffed her hair into a messy halo of chaos. Every stroke of her hand was deliberate practiced. She wasn't trying to look rebellious. She was trying to look disappointing. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't costume makeup. This was self-defense. Upstairs, her very loud, very traditional Latino family was waiting in a private booth, ready to parade her in front of a high-quality match. Elena knew the type: perfectly pressed shirt, curated Instagram, a checklist in human form. And she'd already decided she was done being compared, measured, or told to try harder to be more feminine. So she came armed with a plan. A stupid plan, but her only plan. Operation Ugly. She took one last breath, inspected the raccoon eye masterpiece she'd created, and whispered to herself, "Perfect. No one would swipe right on this." Then she stepped out of the car, pulling her frumpy sweater tighter around her. She pushed through the rooftop entrance, tolerated 30 minutes of the blind date's visible horror, watched him text under the table like she wasn't sitting across from him, and finally walked back out onto the street with a small, victorious smile. Mission accomplished. But the moment her heel hit the sidewalk, a sleek black Maybach rolled to a stop so smoothly it felt rehearsed. The tinted window lowered. A man's silhouette came into focus, sharp jawline, impeccable suit, the kind of aura that didn't have to be loud to dominate a room. His eyes flicked over her face, not with disgust or confusion, but with precision. "Cancel the others," he said calmly to someone inside the car. His gaze never left her. "I want her." Elena froze, heartbeat stuttering. What others? And who the hell was this man? She spun around to check if someone was behind her, maybe a model he was actually referring to. No one. Just her and her atrocious eyeliner. The car door didn't open. The window stayed half lowered, just enough for his eyes, icy, unreadable, to remain locked on hers. Elena swallowed hard, every instinct screaming run, but her feet stayed nailed to the pavement. The light changed, cars honked, New Yorkers flowed around her like she wasn't even there. But his gaze didn't waver. Then just as abruptly the window rolled up, and the Maybach glided into traffic as if it had only stopped to confirm she existed. Elena stood on the sidewalk long after the taillights disappeared, hugging her sweater, trying to steady her breath. Maybe he was talking about someone else. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe her eyeliner was so bad she was hallucinating. She forced herself to move, walking quickly toward the subway, refusing to let her imagination spiral into whatever that moment could have meant. Her head was buzzing, but she repeated the lie until it felt almost true. He wasn't talking about me. He can't be. The Brooklyn-bound train rattled beneath her as she descended into the station, grateful for the anonymity that came with grimy tiles and fluorescent lights. Perfect people didn't ride the subway. CEOs definitely didn't. Whatever happened outside, it wasn't her world. She pulled out her phone and texted her best friend. "I survived the blind date. Guy was awful. I looked awful. Everything awful. Perfect." Her friend replied instantly, "Tell me everything." Elena didn't. She couldn't find the words for the part she didn't understand. The strange man, the way he looked at her, the feeling that something had shifted without her permission. She shoved her phone into her pocket and boarded the train. Back outside the rooftop bar on the same corner where Elena had frozen under that unnerving gaze, a different black car pulled up. A man with a tablet leaned down to speak into an earpiece. Target located. Sending her file now. A pause, a breath, a nod. From the back seat, a familiar voice responded low and controlled. "Good. Find a way to bring her to me." Elena, halfway across the East River, had no idea her face, half mascaraed, half exhausted, fully unintentional, was now on the radar of a man who never chose anything without a reason, and she had no clue why someone like him wanted someone like her. The Maybach's taillights disappeared into the Manhattan night, but the unease it left behind clung to Elena all the way to Brooklyn. By the time she reached her apartment, she had convinced herself it was a misunderstanding, just another weird New York moment she'd laugh about later. She washed off the disastrous makeup, tied her hair in a messy bun, pulled on an oversized t-shirt, and fell asleep, convinced the world would forget about her by morning. It did not. On the other side of the city, in the back seat of the same Maybach, Adrian Aurelius sat with his elbows resting on his knees, eyes fixed on the tablet his security team handed him. Elena's name appeared at the top of the screen. Elena Rivera, 24, part-time bartender, design student, no criminal record, no ties to any influencer circles, no involvement with socialites. A clean slate, too clean. His assistant Mason watched Adrian's expression shift just slightly. Interest, curiosity, something else he couldn't name. "Sir." "She's not your type," Mason said carefully. Adrian didn't look up. "Exactly." Mason blinked. "That's the opposite of what I expected to hear." Adrian closed the tablet, leaned back, and stared out the tinted window. "Set up a meeting with her." Mason hesitated. "She walked out of a simple blind date. She's not someone who likes attention." That Adrian replied, voice calm but final, is precisely why I want to speak with her. The Maybach merged onto the bridge, gliding toward Manhattan's skyline with quiet determination. Elena, however, awoke the next morning with a headache, a dry throat, and the naive hope that the universe had moved on. She changed into jeans and a hoodie and rushed to her shift at the bar, one of those Brooklyn spots where mismatched stools and overpriced lattes lived side by side. She was wiping down a counter when her coworker Marco waved a phone in her face. "Dude, this you?" She didn't even look. "If it's a meme, I don't want to see it." "It's not a meme," he insisted. "It's weird." The word weird made her pause. Elena snatched the phone and stared at the screen. A grainy TikTok video showed a sleek black car and her in that nightmare makeup. The caption read, "Billionaire's car stops for the weird girl, New York is crazy, lol." Her stomach dropped. "Who posted this?" she muttered. "Some random," Marco said. "It's already at like 12,000 views. People in the comments are asking who you are." "Fantastic," she groaned. "I always wanted to be known as Weird Girl." She set the phone down just as the bar's front door opened, letting in a man in a dark suit. He looked completely out of place among the mismatched bar stools, and Elena felt her blood chill. Marco whispered, "Girl, that's corporate, like, expensive corporate." The man approached the counter, ignoring the stares from patrons. "Elena Rivera?" he asked. "Nope," she replied immediately. "Never heard of her." He raised a brow. "You're wearing a name tag." She glanced down. Damn the name tag. He offered a pristine white business card. "I'm Mason Hale, assistant to Adrian Aurelius." Elena blinked. "Who?" A murmur rippled through the bar. A woman at a table gasped. "The Adrian Aurelius." Elena frowned. "Sorry, I don't speak rich people." Marco slapped a hand over his mouth to stop himself from laughing. Mason continued patiently. "Mr. Aurelius would like to meet with you." "No," Elena said instantly. "Absolutely not. It's important." "It sounds creepy." "It's not personal," Mason attempted. "He simply wants to meet a random bartender he saw once she cut in." That's the definition of personal. People were watching now, phones out, eyes wide, waiting for the plot twist. Elena, Mason said, "Lower, he chose you. And he doesn't choose lightly." Her stomach twisted. Chosen. For what Mason didn't answer. Instead, he slid a sealed envelope across the counter. Inside was a formal invitation printed on thick cardstock with elegant black lettering. Aurelius Hotels. Group private meeting guest. Elena Rivera. Car service included. She stared at it numb. Marco leaned over her shoulder. "Girl, what did you do?" "Nothing." Elena insisted, even though she suddenly wasn't as sure. But the attention, the whispers, the phones recording it was too much. She shoved the envelope back toward Mason. "Tell him I'm not interested." Mason didn't look surprised. "He said you'd say that." That annoyed her even more. Then he shouldn't bother. Mason glanced toward the window. He's persistent. Elena followed his gaze and froze. Across the street, parked casually beside a fire hydrant like it owned the block, was the same black Maybach, tinted windows, engine running. She felt her legs weaken. "Is he in there?" she whispered. Mason didn't answer, which was an answer. "Oh my God," Marco breathed behind her. "You're being stalked by a billionaire." Elena shot him a look, not helping. Her pulse hammered beneath her skin. This wasn't normal. This wasn't safe. This wasn't anything she understood. Mason took a step back. "He only wants a conversation." "I don't," she snapped. He nodded respectfully. "I'll let him know." As Mason exited the bar, customers crowded the windows to watch. The moment he reached the Maybach, someone shouted, "This is insane," and another started a live stream titled "Billionaire Scouting a Brooklyn Girl." Elena grabbed her apron, tossed it aside, and ducked into the back room until her hands stopped shaking. When she finally stepped outside after her shift, the Maybach was gone, but on her phone was a single text from an unknown number. "If you won't come to me, I'll come to you." Elena's heart skipped painfully. She stared down the empty Brooklyn street, whispering to herself, "What does he even want with me?" Elena almost turned back 3 times on her way to the Aurelius Tower. The skyscraper stretched so high it seemed to cut the morning light in half, and every part of it screamed money cold, polished, intimidating money. She stood at the entrance with her hoodie pulled tight, debating whether this was the moment she officially lost her mind. A security guard checked her ID, then said something she didn't expect. "Top floor. He's expecting you." Her pulse jumped. Like, expecting? The guard didn't smile. "Yes, ma'am." She stepped into the elevator, which moved so silently it didn't feel real. As the digital numbers climbed higher at 72, her stomach knotted tighter. When the doors opened on floor 90, a perfectly groomed assistant in a navy suit was already waiting. "Ms. Rivera, follow me." The hallway was lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. She tried not to stare, but she'd never seen the city like this, calm, distant, almost gentle. Her shoes squeaked against the marble floor as the assistant led her to a massive set of double doors. "He's inside," he said, and slipped away before she could ask for an emergency exit. Elena inhaled, bracing herself. Then she pushed the doors open. Adrian Aurelius stood with his back to her, framed by the skyline, hands in his pockets. He didn't turn right away, which somehow made him even more intimidating. Elena cleared her throat. "So, is this where you tell me you're starting a cult?" she said. Adrian turned, and for the briefest second there was a flicker of amusement, maybe. Barely there. "If I were," he said, "you would be the last person I'd recruit." She blinked. That was almost an insult. Not quite. He nodded at a chair across from him. "Sit." "No, thank you," she said, crossing her arms. "I'm not here for whatever this is." He studied her for a moment. "You came because your assistant practically hunted me down. You didn't have to follow him here." She hated how he was right. She hated even more that he seemed to know she hated it. Elena sighed dramatically and plopped into the chair. "Fine. You get 5 minutes, then I'm leaving." Adrian sat across from her, posture relaxed but gaze razor sharp. "Why did you sabotage your blind date?" She choked. "Excuse me. You smeared makeup on your face intentionally, made your hair messy, wore clothing designed to repel." "Why?" Her cheeks burned. "Were you spying on me? I was observing." He corrected tone, steady. "There's a difference." "Not really." "There is when I'm the one doing it." Elena's jaw dropped. "Wow. Okay. Your ego must be exhausting." Adrian didn't react. "Most people try to impress. You try to disappear." "I wasn't trying to disappear," she muttered. He leaned slightly forward. "Exactly." That word hit her again. It made her feel seen in a way she wasn't comfortable with. "Look," she said, rubbing the back of her neck. "I didn't sabotage anything. I just didn't feel like trying." "Why?" she snapped. "Why does it matter to you?" Adrian didn't answer immediately. He exhaled, slow and controlled. "I'm surrounded by people who pretend to be perfect, flawless smiles, curated lives, polished intentions." His eyes locked onto hers. Pretty things often hide sharp edges. She paused, thrown off by the quiet heaviness in his voice. "So, you decided to pick someone who looks like a mess?" she asked. No, he said. I decided to pick someone who isn't pretending. Elena swallowed. He opened a folder and slid a document across the table. She hesitated, then pulled it closer. Her eyes widened. This is... She blinked. A contract. An agreement, he corrected again. For you to be my public girlfriend. She stared at him. Are you okay, like medically? It is a strategic choice, he said coolly. My family expects an arranged engagement with a socialite. I need someone unpredictable. Unpredictable, she echoed. That's what you call me? Yes. I'm not sure if I should be offended or flattered. Both are acceptable. She squinted at him. Do you flirt like this with everyone? I'm not flirting, he said. Her cheeks warmed anyway. She flipped through the pages, public appearances, 5 events, security protocols, compensation that made her dizzy. But then she hit the clause that made her freeze. Must reside in CEO residence for credibility, she read aloud. Oh, hell no. Adrian didn't blink. It is necessary. It is insane. You would have privacy. You'd have to pry me out of my apartment first. You came here, Adrian reminded. That was before I knew you wanted me to move into your penthouse like some reality show contestant. Adrian tilted his head. You misunderstand. Oh, please enlighten me. His voice softened in a way that made her chest tighten. I don't need someone perfect. I need someone real, someone who's not performing. That still doesn't explain why me. He looked at her for a long, steady moment. Because you don't want to be chosen. The room went still. Elena's breath caught in her throat. No one had ever articulated her insecurity so cleanly, and it terrified her. I can't, she whispered. You haven't heard the full offer, he said. I don't care. This is too much. She stood, pushing the chair back. Thank you for the, insane opportunity, but I'm leaving now. She walked toward the door, refusing to look back. Just as she reached it, his voice followed her low, steady, too honest. You're the realest person I've met in years. Her hand froze on the doorknob. She didn't turn around. She didn't breathe. She just whispered, I wish that wasn't true, and slipped out before he could say anything else. Elena stared at the text on her phone for a full 5 minutes before admitting defeat. She was going to this dinner. Not because she wanted to, but because the alternative, Adrian showing up at her apartment again, felt even scarier. So she changed into a simple black dress she'd bought on sale 2 years ago, tied her hair into a low ponytail, and dabbed on the tiniest bit of makeup. Not pretty, not glamorous, just Elena. At 6:59 p.m., she pushed open the heavy glass doors of the Michelin-starred restaurant Adrian had texted her. Everything inside gleamed, polished marble floors, golden lighting, live piano music drifting like silk across the room. It was the kind of place that made her feel like she should apologize for existing. The host glanced up as she approached, eyes flicking from her sneakers to her plain dress. May I help you? Reservation for Aurelius, she said, hoping she didn't sound like she was trespassing. The host's brows lifted in mild suspicion. We don't take walk-ins for that table. I'm not walking in, she said. I'm literally telling you the name. Do you have ID? He asked. She stared at him. Are you serious? No one else has had to show ID. It's just protocol, he replied, but the way he looked her over made the words sting. Elena opened her mouth to argue, but a calm voice cut through the tension behind her. She's with me. The host stiffened immediately, turning to see Adrian walking toward them. Tailored charcoal suit, crisp shirt, not a hair out of place. It was unfair how effortlessly he fit into this world. Elena felt suddenly underdressed and painfully aware of her ponytail. Adrian stopped beside her and nodded once to the host. That was all it took. The host nearly bowed and murmured apologies before ushering them in. Adrian leaned slightly toward her. I didn't know there would be an issue. There wasn't an issue, she said, heat rising in her cheeks. Just a misunderstanding. He answered, clearly not believing her, but choosing not to press. He guided her without touching toward the most beautiful table in the room, near the large arched window overlooking the city. Elena sat, trying not to imagine the price of every fork and napkin. A waiter appeared immediately. Sparkling or still, Elena panicked. Tap water. The waiter blinked, then glanced at Adrian in confusion. Still, Adrian said smoothly, for both. When the waiter left, Elena leaned across the table. I'm sorry, I probably embarrassed you. You didn't, he said simply. She wasn't convinced. She lifted the menu and nearly dropped it back onto the table. She couldn't pronounce half the dishes. Is gnocchi the silent G kind? She whispered. Adrian's lips twitched. Yes. Great, I'd like to order the one I can say out loud without dying. Noted. She felt her nerves settle a little. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't terrible. Then she reached for her water, misjudged the weight, and splashed a small arc onto the pristine tablecloth. Her eyes widened. A couple at the next table snickered. Still manageable, she told herself. But when she set the glass down too quickly, the fork slipped off the edge of her plate and clattered loudly onto the floor. The snickering got louder. The woman at the next table pulled out her phone and began whispering into her front camera. This is why rich men shouldn't date normal girls, she said to her followers. Elena flinched, cheeks burning. She kept her eyes on her plate, willing herself not to cry. Adrian set down his knife with a soft, controlled click. Then he rose from his seat. Elena, he said quietly. She looked up, startled. Stay here. He stepped over to the other table, posture tall and unignorable. The woman froze mid-live stream as Adrian's shadow fell over her. Delete the recording, he said, not raising his voice. Now. The woman opened her mouth to argue, but the intensity in Adrian's eyes made her hands shake. She fumbled with her phone and deleted the video without a word. The entire restaurant fell silent. Adrian returned to his seat like nothing had happened. Where were we? Elena stared at him, speechless. You didn't have to do that. I know, it was a lot. So was their behavior. Something warm and heavy settled in her chest. She didn't like attention, but she liked being defended. Maybe too much. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry if I ruined tonight. You didn't ruin anything, he replied, brows knitting slightly. Why do you assume that? She blinked. Because I always do. He leaned back, studying her in a way that made her feel both exposed and strangely safe. You apologize for things that are not your fault. She looked away. It's just easier. No, Adrian said quietly. It's conditioning. Her breath hitched. He continued, voice softer. Who made you believe you were an inconvenience? Elena didn't answer. She couldn't. The silence stretched between them, not awkward, but heavy with truth she wasn't ready to unpack. Finally, Adrian broke it. Tomorrow, he said, eyes locked on hers, don't hide anymore. Her pulse jumped. Hide what? Your face. She froze. My face. He nodded once. Come to the penthouse. I'll show you. Her heart thudded painfully. Adrian, what does that even mean? But he didn't explain. When the dinner ended and they stepped into the cool Manhattan night, Elena felt the weight of his words cling to her like static. On the subway home, she kept touching her cheek, her lips, the skin she'd covered or downplayed for years. For the first time, she wondered, terrified, what he would think when he saw the real her. Not the messy makeup, not the broken confidence, just Elena. And somehow that was scarier than everything else. Elena spent half the night sitting in front of her bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection as water dripped from the ends of her hair. She wasn't wearing makeup, not even lip balm, just her, bare, unedited, exposed, and she hated how small she felt under her own gaze. Adrian's words echoed over and over in her head. Tomorrow, don't hide anymore. She wasn't sure what scared her more, the idea of him seeing her real face, or the possibility that he might react just like everyone else had. She touched the faint scars on her cheekbone, remembered the ex-boyfriend who'd once said she'd look almost pretty if she put in more effort, and felt the familiar sting of old wounds. But something about Adrian's voice, steady, intentional, almost gentle, kept her from backing out. By morning, her stomach was in knots, but she forced herself onto the subway, gripping the handrail while a Manhattan blurred past the windows. When she stepped into the Aurelius Tower, the same assistant from before greeted her with a respectful nod. Ms. Rivera, he's waiting. Her heart thudded louder. The assistant led her not to the office, but to a small studio room she hadn't seen before. Bright white lights, floor-length mirrors, towels neatly folded in a chair in the center like a spotlight. Adrian stood near the window, sleeves rolled to his forearms, looking out at the city. He turned the moment she entered. You came. I still don't know why she admitted. He nodded toward the chair. Sit if you're comfortable. If I'm not, then we stand here and talk, he said, stepping back to give her space. I won't touch you without permission. The way he said it without hesitation, without ego, made something in her chest loosen. She sat. Adrian approached slowly as if she were a frightened animal he didn't want to spook. He stopped far enough that she didn't feel crowded. "Elena," he said quietly. "Why do you hide?" She laughed weakly. "Isn't it obvious?" "No," he said. "It isn't." Her fingers tightened in her lap. "Because people see what they want to see. And what do you think they see?" She looked away, jaw clenching. "Someone plain, someone not worth looking at twice, someone who's less." Elena, Adrian said, voice steady. "Who told you that?" She inhaled sharply. "Everyone." He didn't respond right away. Instead, he set a small bottle of makeup remover and cotton pads on the vanity in front of her. "You take it off," he said. "Only if you want to." She hesitated, then picked up a pad. Her hands shook. Adrian didn't move closer. His presence was a quiet anchor, not a pressure. She wiped under her eyes first, revealing the natural shadows, the slight freckles she always hid. Then she removed the foundation, exposing skin she'd spent years covering. With every swipe, a memory surfaced, girls whispering in high school, the influencer ex he chose over her, the bartender customers who made comments they thought were harmless. When she reached the last traces of concealer, her breath hitched. "This is stupid," she whispered. "I feel stupid." Adrian finally stepped forward a single step. "Look up." She did. He didn't flinch, didn't analyze, didn't look away. He just looked, really looked, and then he said softly, like a fact rather than a compliment, "You're not plain." Her throat tightened. "You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it because I have to." His voice deepened. "You look like someone who refuses to pretend, even when pretending might have made life easier." Her eyes burned. "That's not beauty. It's the kind that lasts," Adrian said. Her breath trembled. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not with pity, not with sugarcoating, but with conviction. A tear slid down her cheek before she could stop it. Adrian didn't reach for her, just stood still, allowing her the dignity of her own emotions. She wiped it away quickly. "Sorry. Don't apologize for feeling," he said. "Ever." The room felt smaller, warmer, more dangerous. "Elena," he continued, "I didn't bring you here to judge your face. I brought you because you hide from the world, the same way I learned to hide from people who looked perfect." She frowned. "You're comparing our trauma." He shook his head. "No. I'm telling you, I understand it." She looked up again, searching his eyes, and found no cracks, no lies, just quiet truth. "Why do you care so much?" she asked. His answer came without hesitation. "Because you're the first person I've met in years who isn't performing." Her breath caught. Adrian reached for a folder on the counter and handed it to her. She opened it and froze. "This is different," she said. "This isn't the same contract." "No," he replied. "I've updated it. Compared to before, the compensation was higher, the timeline extended, and the final clause appearing together at the biggest Aurelius event of the year." She stared at him. "Why increase everything?" He held her gaze, voice low and certain. "Because I underestimated you." Her heart stumbled over its next beat. "And I don't make that mistake twice." Elena closed the folder slowly, pulse wild and uncertain, bare face trembling, exposed in every possible way. She had never felt so seen, and she had never been more terrified. Elena stood in front of the floor-length mirror in the Aurelius showroom, trying not to fidget as the stylist pinned the hem of a dress she'd never have been able to afford in her life. The fabric was soft, elegant, understated, exactly the opposite of the glittery gowns she imagined in Adrian's world. She felt strangely comfortable in it. Too comfortable. She tugged at the neckline. "I look like I'm cosplaying as someone richer." The stylist laughed politely. "You look beautiful." Elena wasn't sure she believed that, but before she could argue, the door opened and Adrian stepped inside. He stopped mid-stride when he saw her, something like surprise flickering across his composed expression. For a heartbeat too long, he didn't say anything. Elena shifted. "Okay, don't stare, you're making it worse." Adrian blinked, composing himself. "It suits you." "That's vague," she muttered. "It wasn't meant to be." His gaze lingered a second longer, then he cleared his throat. "We should finalize the outfit for the gala." Before she could reply, a honeyed voice drifted across the room. "Oh, Adrian." There you are. Elena turned just in time to see a stunning woman sweep into the showroom. Tall, blonde, flawless, wearing confidence like perfume. She moved like she owned the space. Cassandra Hale. Elena didn't know her, but she instantly understood the type curated beauty. Sharp smile, soft voice with steel underneath. Cassandra's gaze skimmed over Elena from head to toe before landing on Adrian. I didn't realize you were entertaining. Adrian's expression hardened a fraction. Cassandra, you're early. Cassandra stepped closer to him, ignoring Elena entirely. I heard whispers. I wanted to see for myself. Elena lifted a brow. See what Cassandra finally acknowledged, her offering a smile that held no warmth. You sweetie. Elena forced a polite nod. Hi. That dress is fresh, Cassandra said, tone sweet and lethal. Very beginner-friendly. Elena blinked. Beginner like toddler-level beginner or amateur hour beginner. Cassandra's smile sharpened. Don't worry. Everyone starts somewhere. Adrian stepped subtly between them. Cassie, now isn't the time. Oh, relax, she cooed. I'm trying to help your little situation. Elena stiffened. What situation? Cassandra tilted her head like a concerned aunt. This world isn't easy. People will judge you, question why you're here, wonder if you're temporary. Elena folded her arms. And you're the welcoming committee, I'm warning you, Cassandra replied, still smiling. Men like Adrian don't date girls like you. The blow landed cold and precise. Elena's jaw clenched. Adrian's eyes darkened. Enough. Cassandra ignored him. Girls like you get overwhelmed, lost, chewed up. Elena swallowed hard. Actually, girls like me survive just fine. Oh, I'm sure, Cassandra replied lightly. But can you keep up? Or will this be charity work for him, something inside? Elena cracked. She didn't know this woman, but she knew the tone. She'd heard it from classmates, co-workers, ex-boyfriends. It hit every raw nerve she'd spent years trying to shield. Adrian stepped in. Cassandra, you're crossing a line. Am I? She asked, with so innocent. I mean, she is adorable. Like a project. Elena took a breath, steady but trembling. I'm not a project. Cassandra's smile turned pitying. Sweetie, if the shoe fits, stop. Adrian's voice sliced through the room. Cassandra, you need to leave. Cassandra froze. Her repainted-on confidence faltered for the first time. Adrian, I said, leave. His tone wasn't raised, but the command was unmistakable. Cassandra's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes glittering with resentment. This isn't over, she murmured, before storming out, heels clicking sharply across the floor. Silence settled like dust. Elena looked down at her hands. They were shaking. Adrian moved closer, but she stepped back. Elena, don't, she whispered. I just need a minute. She hurried into the restroom, attached to the showroom, and locked the door. The moment she saw her reflection, eyes glossy, throat tight, the tears came. Not because of Cassandra, not really. It was because Cassandra had spoken every fear Elena already had. She pressed a hand to her mouth, inhaled shakily, and forced herself to steady. When she finally stepped out, Adrian was waiting. His face softened when he saw her. Elena, she lifted a hand. Don't apologize for her. It's not your job. No, he said quietly. But protecting you is. The words struck something deep, too deep. She shook her head. I don't belong here. That isn't true. Maybe not to you, she said softly. But to everyone else, I'm the joke. The charity case. The experiment. Adrian stepped closer. You're none of those things. Then why does it feel so impossible? She whispered. Being in your world. His expression tightened. I'll make it easier. You can't, she said, voice breaking. And I can't keep doing this. Being judged by people like her. Being talked about like I'm nothing. Adrian's eyes darkened with something like frustration and maybe fear. What are you saying? Elena held his gaze even though it hurt. I'm done, Adrian. I can't be part of this. His breath caught. Elena, I'm not signing the contract, she said, steady now. Resolved. Find someone who fits your world. The words hung between them sharp as glass. Adrian looked like she had struck him not physically, but somewhere deeper. Elena, he said quietly. Don't do this. I have to. He reached out instinctively, then stopped himself, fingers curling back like he'd touched fire. She stepped away first. "I'm sorry," she whispered. And then she left the showroom, leaving Adrian standing in the middle of the elegant glittering room, a man who had built an empire, but for the first time in years, had no idea how to fix something that mattered. Adrian stared at his phone long after the call had gone to voicemail. The screen lit up with Elena's name again and again, unanswered every time. He wasn't used to people walking away from him. Investors didn't, board members didn't, socialites definitely didn't, but Elena had walked out without looking back, and he felt the hit like a blow to the ribs. Mason stood by the door, watching him with quiet caution. "Sir, you should give her space." "I can't," Adrian said, voice low. "Not this time." Mason exhaled, resigned. "Then what's the plan?" Adrian didn't answer. He didn't know. All he knew was that Elena leaving felt wrong in a way he couldn't explain, like she'd taken something from him without realizing it. Meanwhile, on the other side of Brooklyn, Elena walked the familiar cracked sidewalks toward her apartment, replaying Cassandra's words until they blended with old memories she tried so hard to bury. The laughter of high school girls, the casual cruelty of her ex-boyfriend, the way people always seemed to look through her. She felt the weight of it all pressing against her chest. By the time she reached her building, her throat was tight, her eyes burning. Inside her apartment, she dropped her keys on the counter and pressed her palms into her face. Silence wrapped around her like a blanket she didn't know if she needed or feared. "I don't belong in his world," she whispered to the empty room. "Of course I don't." She sank onto the couch and closed her eyes, but the familiar ache returned, sharp, persistent, impossible to ignore. Across the river, Adrian stood alone in the empty showroom where she had walked away. His reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, someone who had lost control of something important. He clenched his fists. "I let it happen again." Mason frowned. Again, Adrian didn't look at him. "Years ago, I let someone close, someone who knew exactly how to pretend." His voice darkened. "She used me for status, for access, for leverage. And when she was done, she tried to destroy everything." Mason's expression softened with understanding. "Sir, Elena isn't that person." Adrian didn't speak for a long moment. "No," he finally said. "She's not." He walked out of the showroom, each step heavy with frustration he couldn't shake. Back in Brooklyn, Elena checked her phone, hoping with the guilt she didn't want to admit to see a message from him. Nothing. Instead, her notifications were exploding with something else entirely. Her best friend had texted her a link. "Brooklyn bartender goes viral, billionaire's new mystery girl." Elena's chest dropped. She scrolled further, palms sweating. There were photos, her leaving the Aurelius Tower, her on the subway, her stepping out of the bar yesterday. Captions ranged from curious to cruel. "She's cute in a pity kind of way. PR stunt. Not his type at all. She looks normal, like actually normal." She slammed the phone down, heart racing. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't live like this." Her reflection in the dark window glimmered small, overwhelmed, alone. She grabbed her jacket, desperate for air, and stumbled down the stairs into the cold Brooklyn night. Rain had begun to fall, sharp, icy drops that soaked into her clothes almost instantly. She didn't care. She walked faster, hugging herself against the wind. Halfway down the block, a black car turned the corner. Elena froze, heart climbing into her throat. The car slowed, then stopped. A tall figure stepped out, letting the rain soak him without flinching. "Adrian." Elena's breath caught. "What are you doing here?" He looked at her like he'd been searching for hours. "You left." "I had to," she argued, voice breaking. "I don't fit in your world, Adrian. Everyone knows it. They made sure I knew it." Rain clung to his hair, his lashes, his suit. He didn't seem to notice. "I don't care what they think." "I do," she said, chest trembling. "Because it hurts." Adrian stepped closer. "Elena," no, she said softly. "Don't say my name like that. It makes it harder." He stopped in front of her, inches away. "I failed you today." "You didn't," she whispered. "I just can't handle all of this. You shouldn't have to handle it alone." She shook her head, blinking through tears and rain. "I don't belong in your world, Adrian." He shook his head once. "Then I'll meet you in yours." Her breath stuttered. "Don't say things you don't mean." He looked straight into her eyes, and for the first time the walls behind his gaze cracked. I didn't come here because of the contract, he said. I didn't chase you because of the arrangement. Then why? He swallowed rain, sliding down his jaw. Because it's you. I didn't want to admit it at first. I tried not to. His voice dropped. But I can't lose you. Elena felt her knees weaken as the truth settled into her. He wasn't performing. He wasn't pretending. This was real. Too real. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. I don't expect you to know right now, he said gently. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. The rain fell harder, drowning out the city's noise, leaving only the sound of their uneven breaths. Elena wrapped her arms around herself, shivering. Not from the cold, from the fear of believing him. Adrian stepped even closer, but carefully giving her room to step away. Elena, he said, voice low, tell me to go and I will. But if you don't, his breath mixed with hers, I'll stay. Her lips parted, but no words came out, only the truth her eyes couldn't hide. She didn't want him to go. She never had. Elena woke to the soft rustle of paper on her coffee table. Adrian's suit jacket, draped neatly over a chair, was the only proof he had been in her apartment the night before. Next to it, a handwritten note in dark, confident strokes read, Let me try again. At your pace, A. She traced the edge of the paper with her thumb, feeling something warm squeeze her chest. But the warmth vanished the moment she checked her phone. Notifications flooded the screen. Mentions, tags, links, headlines, her name everywhere. Who is Adrian Aurelius's Brooklyn girl mystery girlfriend, real or PR stunt Homer Aurelius girlfriend, trending across Twitter? She scrolled through comments until one cut deeper than the rest. Too basic for him. Her stomach twisted. She threw on a jacket, shoved her hair into a frantic bun, and headed to the Aurelius Tower, needing answers, needing something. When she arrived, the lobby was buzzing. Employees whispered as she passed. That's her, she's so normal. He could do better. Each murmur made her shrink further into her coat. Then a familiar voice broke the tension. Elena. Adrian appeared at the end of the hall, his expression tightening when he saw her pale face. He closed the distance quickly. You shouldn't have come alone. I didn't know where else to go. He hesitated for a breath. Come with me. Inside a glass-walled conference room high above the city, Elena paced. This is insane, she said. People are posting pictures of me on the subway. My coworkers won't stop asking questions. And the internet. God, the internet. Adrian stepped closer. I'll handle the press. You can't stop the entire internet, she whispered. I can stop it from hurting you. She laughed, small, humorless. That's not how this works. He exhaled slowly, something tightening in his jaw. Then tell me what you want. I'll do it. She froze. No one had ever asked her that before, not genuinely. I don't know, she said. I just don't want to disappear under all of this. His voice softened. You won't. Before she could respond, Mason appeared at the door. Sir, you're due at the gala in 3 hours. Adrian nodded, then turned back to her. I want you there. Elena stepped back. No. Adrian, I can't. You can, and you will stand next to me. His voice gentled. Let them judge both of us. She swallowed hard. It's not that simple. It is, he said, when you're with me. Hours later, the gala hall glowed with golden chandeliers and the gleam of designer gowns. Elena stepped inside wearing the dress chosen the day before, clean lines, minimalistic, elegant in its simplicity. The room stopped for a fraction of a second when she walked in beside Adrian. He looked at her like she was the only person in the room, but the whispers started immediately. She looks fine, I guess. He downgraded. Elena kept her eyes on Adrian's hand, which rested lightly at her back without pressure. Then Cassandra appeared like a shadow dipped in gold. Oh, sweetie, she drawled. They let you in. I'm impressed. Elena stiffened. She didn't respond. Adrian heard the comment and stepped in front of Cassandra like a shield. Enough, Cassie. Cassandra smirked. Just concerned for your image. I'm more concerned about your behavior, he replied coldly. Cassandra's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly and melted back into the crowd. Elena let out a shaky breath. She's persistent. She's irrelevant, Adrian said. They didn't reach the bar before the next blow came. A graying investor approached with a glass of scotch and a smirk. Aurelius, he said loudly. Doing charity this year, are we? Elena's stomach dropped. Adrian stepped forward, body going still. Watch your mouth, he said, quiet lethal. The investor scoffed, but backed away when Adrian's eyes sharpened like a blade. Elena didn't know whether to hide or hold on to him. She barely had time to decide before a journalist swooped in, thrusting a recorder toward Adrian. Mr. Aurelius, is it true your new girlfriend has a history of dating older men for money? The crowd gasped. Elena froze, blood draining from her face. She tried to speak, but air refused to leave her lungs. Adrian did not hesitate. He stepped directly in front of her, blocking the cameras and the questions. She's the woman I chose, he said, voice carrying through every corner of the hall. The only one. And if anyone here has a problem with that, he swept a cold gaze across the room. You're free to leave. Silence. Stunned, breathless silence. A handful of guests actually walked out. The rest stayed too shocked to move. Elena's chest tightened, emotion rising too fast. He turned to her, placing a gentle hand at her elbow. You okay? She nodded barely. When the speeches were done and the music softened, Elena found herself beside him beneath a balcony arch, draped in soft lights. She exhaled shakily. You didn't have to do that. I did. Why, Adrian? Why say all that? He stepped closer, eyes softening in a way she had never seen before. Because I'm done hiding you, he said quietly. Her heart thudded painfully. Are you confessing? Adrian gave a small, almost teasing tilt of his head. Not yet. Why not? His voice dropped to a near whisper, warm against her cheek. Unless you want me to. The breath caught in her throat, caught and stayed. The room blurred behind him, leaving only the two of them suspended in the soft glow of chandeliers and possibility. For the first time that night, she didn't want to run. Elena stepped out onto the rooftop terrace, the cool night air brushing her skin in a way that finally let her breathe. The gala's noise dimmed behind her, replaced by the hum of the city far below. New York glittered like 1,000 scattered diamonds, uncaring and beautiful. For the first time all night, she felt her pulse slow. A moment later, the terrace door clicked shut and Adrian joined her. He stood beside her, close but not touching, giving her space to choose her distance. His jacket hung open, bow tie undone, the faintest tension softening in his shoulders now that they were alone. You look strong tonight, he said, voice quiet. Stronger than I've ever been. She let out a soft, shaky laugh. I almost ran. That's still strength, he replied, because you stayed. She wrapped her arms around herself, watching the lights flicker across the river. When they said those things about me, I felt like I was back in high school again. Back in every room where I didn't belong. I know, he said. I could see it. She swallowed. Why did you defend me like that in front of everyone? Adrian turned toward her, but he didn't reach for her. Because I won't let them decide your worth, and because they were wrong. She shook her head slightly. You don't understand. I felt small for so long. Invisible. Disposable. I don't see you that way. But you could have ignored it, she whispered. Walked away. Pretended none of it mattered. I couldn't, he said softly. Not when it was about you. Her breath hitched. For a moment she couldn't look at him, afraid of what she'd see, afraid it would break something inside her. But when she finally lifted her eyes, his expression wasn't pity or obligation. It was something else, something terrifying and gentle. I need to ask, she said. Why me, Adrian? Why out of everyone in your perfect, polished world? He exhaled the kind of breath that carried years of something heavy. Because you weren't trying to impress me, he said. Not once. Even when you were terrified, you were honest. And the truth is... He paused, choosing his words with unusual care. I haven't been around honesty in a long time. Her heart thudded once hard. People look at me and see power, Adrian continued. They see money, position, something to use, something to chase. You're the first person who looked at me and saw none of that. I saw someone who wouldn't stop staring at my terrible makeup, she muttered. A soft laugh escaped him. I stared because you didn't want to be seen. That's what caught my attention. That's what stayed. The wind swept across the terrace, tugging at her hair. Elena looked down at her hands. I didn't think I deserved this, she said quietly. Any of it, especially not someone like you. Adrian stepped closer, not enough to overwhelm, but enough to warm the inches between them. Then let me prove you wrong. Her breath trembled. Is that your confession? Not quite. He reached up slowly, slow enough that she could stop him at any moment, and brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. It was the lightest touch, almost cautious. Elena, he murmured, stay. Not because of a contract, not because you think you owe me anything. Stay, because of me. The words sank into her with a weight she wasn't prepared for. She felt exposed again, barefaced, unguarded, but this time it didn't hurt. It felt like stepping into sunlight after weeks of gray skies. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm scared. So am I, he admitted. But I want this. I want you, not the image you hide behind. You. The city hummed beneath them like a living heartbeat. The wind carried the faint echo of music from the gala. Elena took a single decisive step forward. Adrian stilled. Then she reached up, gripping the lapels of his undone jacket, guiding him down gently. Their lips met, soft at first, slow, tentative. A question, an answer, a beginning. When they finally parted, Adrian rested his forehead against hers, breath warm. You don't have to hide anymore, he whispered. Elena exhaled, the weight on her ribs lifting. Not from you. Below them, New York kept its secrets, its noise, its brightness. But up here, everything felt peaceful, like they'd carved out a small, unshakable space just for themselves. For once, she wasn't running. For once, he wasn't guarded. For once, they were both exactly where they chose to be. And that was enough. She leaned into him, letting the night wrap around them both, letting the city fade into a blur of light. After a long moment, she said softly, "Thank you for choosing me." Adrian's hand found hers, fingers intertwining naturally. Always. A quiet silence settled, full and warm. And then, like a breath at the edge of the story, the narrator's voice emerges gently. If you've ever felt like Elena, afraid to show your real self because the world can be cruel, share a moment in the comments. Sometimes telling your story is the first step to healing. If Adrian's choice reminded you that real love still exists in unexpected places, tap like before you go. And if you want more stories like this, raw, messy, honest, and full of heart, don't forget to subscribe and stay with us. There's still so much left to tell. Thank you for staying until the end.